You're listening to the Songs of Inspiration podcast, bringing you local interviews and performances by singer-songwriters with the goal to give space to the music community and share local artists' messages and stories with the world. I'm your host, Lars Wickland. Hey everyone. We are here for another episode of the Songs of Inspiration podcast. I'm here with Valerie and Greg of Wayward Vine, indie folk act. And thank you guys for being on the podcast today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To start off, can you tell us a little bit about how you got started with songwriting and how you kind of came together as an act and stuff?
Well, as far as songwriting goes, I guess for me, it was sort of a later in life adventure. So I played instruments for a really long time. So kind of just from when I was in kindergarten, just classical music, right? So started along those lines and continued that way for a long time. And then it wasn't until really about 2019, 2020 when I really started writing music. For a while, I just didn't even want to share it with anyone. So it was kind of a, I'm just going to kind of take out all the things going on in life through, songwriting. And it was happening, I guess, during the pandemic and all that triggered that for me, just kind of wanting to put pen to paper and really, get things out there. And then right around that time, is when Greg and I kind of teamed up as a group. And I think, Greg can explain his own story. I think he'd been writing for a lot longer than me, but somehow it was just a great collaboration. And we kind of saw that from the beginning. So I don't know if you want to share a bit about your experience.
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever heard your story on how songwriting began for you. There's more parallels than I realized. So I consider myself a late bloomer as well. Music was in my family, and I'll get to that at some point if we go there.
Sure.
We both have day jobs, by the way, right? So I started dabbling in songwriting in my 20s, but it was always in a little parking lot, and nobody could see it. Right?
Yeah.
Like, don't look here. And if I look back on some of the things I had done back then, it was very immature, and I really got excited when like the grunge movement. So I was like dabbling in grunge writing and things like that. But I also had this inherent love of singer-songwriter type stuff.
Yeah.
As well. So it was probably a little mix of both of those. But some of at least one of the songs that we play out now had its beginnings in the early 2000s, like 20 years ago.
Yeah. And
it just sat in that parking lot. It was really just an idea. It was not a fully formed song, but just the atmospheric theme to that song. And I came back to it probably 5 years ago and actually made it a song. And so it's just one of my precious babies in the songwriting catalog, right? And we enjoy playing it together as a band as well.
Very cool. And do you guys bring songs you've pre-written mostly to the band, or do you write together a little bit as well?
I would say it's a little bit of both. We each so Val and I met 2.5 years ago, something like that, on the dating app for musicians, as I like to call it.
Bandmix.
Bandmix.
I'm just wondering.
Just like dating drama, you have band dramas too.
Right.
But we were a match made in heaven, it turns out. So
nice.
But I think I had a backlog of songs that I had really worked on over the prior 3 or 4 years. Just life changes, and a new phase of my life became the entry point into really focusing on songwriting. And I think you were similar, right? A lot of COVID pandemic writing, particularly for Val.
Yeah.
So we each brought ideas to the table right out of the gate, and then we kind of merged them and made them into real songs with arranging and let's try this and that sort of thing. But that pipeline or back catalog, whatever you want to call it, that's one piece of the overall songwriting equation. Since we've started working together, I feel like it's much more collaborative, right? Like I might come up with a song idea and demo it for her or the rest of our bandmates, but it goes through a really creative process from there, and we really work on it together.
That's cool.
Yeah, I guess one example of that is we have this song "Hard Way to Live," where Greg was like, "Hey, let's write this just kind of bluesy, soulful thing together." And I think it was sort of our first adventure in kind of trying that collaborative process. And so we each kind of, he brought some lyrics, and then we, tried some harmonies together and fleshed it out into sort of some cool jazzy instrumentation. And so I think that was sort of evolving as it went, and now we're really happy with how it turned out. And then with The Fall, which I guess we're probably going to play today, so that one was more, sort of I had started generating it, but then I brought it to Greg, and he added some harmonica, and there was just sort of this beautiful warm sound that came out of that. And I felt like it wasn't a fully formed song until it really had that piece in there. So I think that's part of why it's just been such a great partnership working with Greg.
That's cool. It's cool when you can kind of collaborate on a piece and really kind of bring it to life and flesh it out together and stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we have a couple of other bandmates who couldn't join us today. It goes without saying, they add so much dimension and range to our songs as well. So I just wanted to, give a shout out to them. So Yoni Gordon, who has his own thing. He's a creative guy and very talented showman.
Very cool.
But he kind of lays back in our band and just very quietly adds incredibleness to the music, for lack of he's the perfect fit. He just has this sort of brooding sound out of his main guitar that he plays with us. Just puts cool effects on it, just really brings the music to life. And then Jim St. Pierre is our drummer. He likewise has one other kind of major commitment musically that he attends to, but just he just listens to the song. He's like, this is the drum line that needs to go to it, and he does cool intros and all that sort of thing.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, it's really great when you can take a song and add that additional dimension with.
That's the magic, honestly. That's the magic to the creative process for
absolutely
for music.
Yeah, cool. As far as artists that have influenced you both, do you have any major influences for songwriting?
So for me, I think it was sort of the female singer-songwriters who were really bold about things back in the 90s. So like Alanis Morissette and Paula Cole, and, at times I would listen to Tori Amos and be like, I didn't know you could do that with a piano, right? Because again, with the classical training, I think there were a lot of things I had to kind of unlearn.
Yeah.
Not that I don't really, appreciate having that background, but it's more that I just didn't know what I could do with it, right? Because I was sort of stuck on sheet music, and I didn't really feel the ability to create. And then I would hear these women who kind of were, telling their story, and they were really bold about it, and they didn't care what anyone thought of them, right? They could put anything into a song and really take a personal experience and make it public without any sort of, shame or concern about what was in the lyrics, right? So I think I really felt kind of connected to that type of music. And even though it took me a long time to maybe be brave enough myself to share and, start to songwrite, I think even, listening back then definitely influenced some of the songs I write now.
Very cool.
It's funny you mentioned Alanis Morissette.
Oh yeah.
Not that she's an influence for me, although I think she's great. I didn't mention this to you, Lars. I'm Canadian originally, and I've lived here for 18 years. I was living in Ottawa, Ontario, when Alanis was a very young pop person, like way before she probably a few years before Jagged Little Pill came out, and it was like, who is that artist over there compared to this like screaming, angry, passionate, creator that we all know now. But for me, I mean, I started in my sort of middle school years when when you're just old enough to start buying music for yourself. I had a paper route, so just enough money to go to the mall and buy little cassettes. So my beginnings were that 60s classic rock, so the Beatles. I love the Doors.
Very cool.
Stones. We still play Stones covers.
Nice.
Music like that. That's where I started.
And I guess the other thing in more recent years for me, I kind of forgot to mention, I think it's been more of the theatrical side, because I always used to do musical theater and listen to musical theater.
Oh, cool.
And I feel like I never really thought about this before, but I think a lot of that, my husband told me the other day, like he was like, I think some of your songs sound like kind of like Broadway songs made into pop or folk songs. And I was like, that's really interesting. I never thought of that. And then I was sort of, looking more at my chord progressions and structure and everything, and I realized there definitely is a bit of a theatrical element to it. And I think I'm also influenced by musicians like Sarah Bareilles, where some of her stuff is on Broadway. Like she's written musicals, but she also is in the pop world. So he was probably right. So I feel like we're always learning new things about what we write and kind of, who's impacted by it and what they hear.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Do you have any songwriting routines that you use to stay in the flow and stay creative?
Yes. So for me, it's really just having something accessible at all times, because I find that it's the most inopportune moments that I come up with something. Like I'll be literally like, I'll be working, or one time with like the song, one of the songs we're going to play today, like I literally came up with it in the middle of the night. Like I had some dream, and then I woke up and had this melody in my head, and it was probably 4:30 a.m. And luckily I had my phone next to my bed, and I just kind of voice recorded the melody, and I wrote down a few lyrics and then came back to it in the morning. And I think if I hadn't done that, I probably just would have slipped away and been gone. So I think it's about using any device you have at hand, be it a phone or notebook, and just making sure that the first time you think of something, you actually, get that down.
Yeah, definitely. I've had that happen where it's like you lose it and it's like
Yeah.
I think we're all like that.
Yeah.
I think I've written like 100 great songs that are like gone because I didn't remember. I do the same thing. I try to try. One thing I've learned in my the stage of life I'm at now is I do forget things. So
yeah.
Even if I say to myself, "Oh, I will remember that," 4 hours later, it's gone. So, yeah. I definitely try to trap an idea if it does come into my head. My best example, my son and I go bike riding quite a bit just in the summer months, and I was riding. We were just riding one of the trails,
mm-hmm.
and what I thought was a really catchy song idea. It had a beautiful theme to it. And fortunately I had my phone in my back pocket when I ride my bike. So I'm literally riding my bike and hitting the record button.
Good thing you didn't crash into a tree.
Exactly. Yeah, well, that might have added a new twist to the song story. But a few other thoughts. So there's no exact formula, but like sometimes I don't have, it doesn't necessarily start with one thing or the other. Like sometimes there's just a melody and a rhythm that comes into my head and I just want to run with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I need first is a guitar.
Yeah.
And obviously, I have lots around the house, right? So I'll grab it and, sort of work on it and develop it. What other chords can I put into this? How can it flow? That kind of thing, and then go and trap it, with the recording device.
That's cool.
But sometimes I'll start just with something as simple as one line in a lyric that I want to be the centerpiece of the song, and even sometimes it might even be a song title,
mm-hmm.
right? Like I want to write about this because that's just what's kind of on my mind at the moment. But yeah, I mean, if anyone's looking for like a recipe book from me, they're not going to get one. It's just
yeah. I don't think there is one.
I don't think so exactly. Either. I think it's just very personal to the writer, and that I think it's almost an obstacle. Like if you tell yourself you must do it this way and it's work, I feel like that kind of inhibits your process a little bit, right? Like if I put too much pressure on myself and I say like, all right, I'm going to put out like one song a week for the next 3 weeks, I feel like probably what I put out may not be my best. I feel like I kind of just have to let it come as it does. And sometimes I have periods where I'm writing like several songs a week, and sometimes I go 2 or 3 months where there's nothing, and I kind of have to be a little bit accepting of that and
mm-hmm.
kind of let the experiences that inspire songs happen as they do.
Yeah, definitely. Are you working on any new music or recordings?
Yeah, we pretty much always are, I'd say. It's like, so right now we are recording an album with the help of Woolly Mammoth Studio, which has been fantastic.
Oh, cool.
And so we're really in the throes of that, and it's been awesome because I feel like, this is our first recording experience, and we're learning so much in terms of, even how to play the songs, right? Because we'll be in the studio, for example, David Minahan, who we're working with, will suggest something like, hey, you should just play this octave, and it would sound amazing. And it's like, oh wow, that just brought the song out so much more than we had possibly imagined, and it just kind of shapeshifts everything that we're doing, and it makes it better. So I feel like while we do that, we're still always we have these things in our back pocket that we would love to work on, and then it's like, when are we gonna have time to do all that new material? But I feel like our next plan is really, I think we probably have 10 to 20 songs that are kind of either fully formed or half formed, and we just haven't had a chance to kind of work together on them.
Yeah.
So that'll probably be our next.
They're solo creations at the moment.
Oh, cool.
I refer to the pipeline, right? Like we've got, I think it's closer to 30, to be honest, between the two of us. So in that kind of in between other activities of the band, where we're each in our respective worlds, right? Our respective homes or whatever it might be. We form a song, right? We get out the guitar or the piano, write out the lyrics, arrange it from a song structure standpoint. But nobody else in the band has touched it, right? It's just like a solo performance demo that we have maybe shared, but nobody's contributed to it yet. So we've, the pipeline is exciting.
Yeah.
It's just allocating time because we overbooked ourselves from between recording and then some live shows we've been doing. We've been overbooked since about beginning of February, I'd say, right until the end of April. May is looking a little quieter, so we've started to talk about, okay, what's next? Can we start to work on all these songs that we're excited about? So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool to have a pipeline because it really gets the momentum going too.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. What's one song you've written that holds special meaning for you?
So for me, I guess it's probably one of the ones we're going to play today. It's called The Fall. And for me, I guess that was the one I was describing, kind of came to me in the middle of the night. And I think the reason it did is probably just because our lives were very repetitive at that time, and it kind of left me some space to really create. I think I wrote this one probably around sometime between 2020 and 2021. It was right after schools had shut down.
Oh, wow.
And the kids were home, and my kids were pretty young at the time. And our lives were just very pared down, right? We didn't have any of the things that we normally would do to keep ourselves busy. The kids were in the backyard pretty much every day trying to find things to do. And we could sort of tell, I guess, the impact that this time was having on them. And I think I realized just sort of a feeling of reality of like, okay, this is the life they're going to live right now. And it's so different from what I had envisioned for them.
Yeah.
And for me, I guess personally, I think, there was just a lot of time to reflect on that and kind of feel the space of that time and sort of the good things about it as well as the really difficult things. And I think this song came out of that emotion from that time. And so it definitely still means a lot to me. My kids come to a lot of the shows, and I think they always, think about that song as sort of being like a snippet of their life experience. And
That's
so I
cool.
think that's really meaningful for me as well as for them.
Awesome.
You said just one, didn't you?
Yeah, it's hard to do just one.
We can do two.
Maybe I'll do that. So I already mentioned a song that it had its beginnings like 20 years ago. So that song's called Campfire. And when we intro that song, I try to do justice to sort of warm up the audience before we actually get, start into it, and just talk about, it's intended to be a love song. No hooks or strings, just, you're just in love with another person, and the atmosphere that sort of comes with like being around a campfire. It could be like just the two of you around, on a beach or, whatever. But I was always, go back to when that song had its beginning, I was always mesmerized by almost a love affair with campfires. I can't explain it, but it's just, it creates this sort of vibe. So as I said, it as a song idea and maybe one or two lines, nothing more. It was born like back in the early 2000s, and then fast forward, and it's not about anyone in particular, just to be clear. But there was somebody, in my life who encouraged me to finish it out. So a little bit of inspiration from that, and I got it done. And then it was when I started playing with other people, Val being the very beginning and enduring person, I shared it, and we just figured out how to give it life. And I mentioned Yoni, he had great ideas on how to warm it up and just give it range and all that sort of thing. So it's a nice song to play. If I can cheat and add a bonus song, there's one in our repertoire called Don't Keep Holding On. And we introduce it as two songs in one because the idea is, the central theme is really heartbreak. So you're head over heels in love with somebody and it just doesn't work out, or they don't feel the same way for you. So suddenly they're out of your life. But getting over that feeling of, heartbreak and all the things that go with it, right? Like, is it heartbreak? Is it obsession? What is it? So, I think the mood of the song is true to that feeling. I think the lyrics are clever, if I, like to pat myself on the back a little bit. But then there's a transition, sort of coming out of a bridge where I'm playing harmonica, and we get, all sorts of great stuff happening instrumentally. And then it brightens up, and the whole message of the story is you can get over it, and there's somebody out there for you, and she or he, as the case may be, is just waiting there. You just have to work at it and find them. So
that's cool.
Yeah, so it's a fun song to play as well. It is the most gymnastically challenging one for my voice, as it turns out, because I'm like way up here. But it's fun to play. So
cool. That's cool that it starts with one tone and brightens up in the middle and stuff. That's cool. It's like two themes in one. We have a new musician who's definitely playing with us for a show that's coming up. And he was asking me he was listening to some videos to get familiar with our music, and he said, there was one you were playing where you just went into a new song. I'm like, no, that's just one song.
Yeah, it feels like it could be a mashup. It's sort of that drastic, but it's a fun one to play.
But the very end of the song goes back to the chorus of the hurting part. So
okay, cool. It's cool because when you do stuff like that with stories, it can really come together in a really cool way.
One additional just exciting part of this is, we already talked about the songwriting process, right? Yeah. It's kind of like you have a primary songwriter who brings the idea and a mostly formed song, and then the cross-pollination happens. But in this case, this is true, equal parts contribution to make it come to life, right?
That's cool.
So it'll be a test of our own skill.
And I think we learn a lot from songwriting in different ways too, right? Yeah. Because it helps sort of break you out of your habits. Because I think all of us as songwriters probably, maybe that you sort of lend yourselves to a particular chord pattern, or like, I might write in the key of C a lot, right? And kind of getting yourself out of that habit, I think is good to, it's good to work on something with someone else really collaboratively, so that you don't always use your same starting point, right? It can really mix things up and create a new and different result. So. Yeah,
it can challenge you. What's one piece of advice you'd give to singer-songwriters just starting out?
So I guess from my perspective, it would be the piece of myself that I think was such a barrier for so long, kind of not to do that, right? I think for me, I think I used almost having sheet music in front of me as an inhibition to creating. And I think what I would say is, like, if you play something or you just sing, it's like, it doesn't even matter what type of music you do, right? You probably have a story that's sort of worth being told. And I would say probably just not letting yourself be afraid to share that, right? Yeah. Because I think for so long people say like, oh, there's no point, like what, I'm writing this down, but it's just sort of, my own feelings on paper, and no one really cares about that, and no one's going to relate to that. But I think there's always pieces of someone's story, whether it's your story or someone else's, that can be really meaningful to someone.
Definitely.
And it's usually worth just, sharing that with the world, rather than kind of keeping it in.
Yeah.
And I guess the other piece would be, not to let sort of waiting too long or the feeling of waiting too long stop you, because I think, for me, that was one thing, saying like, oh, how could I possibly kind of form a band at this age and kind of, get that started, and already had my own career and kids and all of that, and I think I'm just really glad that I kind of worked beyond that sort of pressure on myself to kind of not bother being creative. I think it was really important to kind of break out of my shell that way. So I hope that others would hopefully do the same.
Very cool.
I don't have much to add, to be honest. Just be brave.
Yeah.
I think we both expressed this in this conversation. There's this reluctance to just share what you have inside of you, right? When I was describing my journey, I'm like, well, nobody else can see this. It's like, I think that can be okay, but don't let it hinder your ability or your advancement in a whatever you want music to be for you, right? I sat on it for a very long time. I'm a very late bloomer. But like, I see young people and they're so afraid to even perform in front of somebody, even though they've got a musical talent or gift. Just take a chance, just be brave and trust that people aren't going to judge you, for your ideas or your musicianship, and you'll get better if it's developing. I'm still still working on my craft.
And I really think once you share the first thing, I felt like once I shared my first song, after that it was no problem, right? But it was like just getting over that initial feeling of, okay, this is my inner experience, and I'm gonna put that out in the world, and do I care if anyone notices, or if they care about it or think it's good or bad, right? Just getting over that first piece is really important, I think.
Yeah, I think once you put it out there, you see the reaction people have to it and what it can kind of provide for people, because I think people can relate through a song and stuff, and it's really keeps inspiring you to do more and keep growing with it. So yeah, good insights. That was all I had for today, but thank you so much for the time, and I'm looking forward to hearing some music, so let's jump into the performance.
Great. Thanks so much for having us.
All right, this song is called The Fall. This was the one I was talking about a couple minutes ago, which kind of somehow the melody just came to me in the middle of the night after a dream. I don't know what I was dreaming about, but I do know it probably related to just kind of the experience we've been having with every day being sort of the same. And so I had this idea for kind of a repetitive melody that comes throughout the song, and you'll hear that now. And it's really more about the experience of, I would say, families with young kids during that time, but definitely what was true for our family in that time. Keep it all in you. We know it's been hard. You weren't supposed to go through this. Just keep playing in the backyard. Just keep playing in the backyard. Oh, what's it all come to? I'll be there when you call. You suffer in the summer, I feel for you in the fall. You suffer in the summer, I feel for you in the fall. I feel for you in the fall. You take it all to heart. It's not your fault. You weren't built to deal with this. Just keep crying when it gets rough. Just keep crying when it gets rough. Ah, what's it all come to? I'll be there when you call. You suffer in the summer, I feel for you in the fall. You suffer in the summer, I feel for you in the fall.
feel for you in the fall. I feel the future in you, and it's hopeful after what you went through. It's stronger than you think you are, and the flame in you is ready to burn. What's it all come to? I'll be there when you call. You suffer in the summer, I feel for you in the fall. You suffer in the summer, I feel for you in the fall. I feel for you in the fall.
So this next song is called Narcissist Disguise. I feel like I always talk about this one differently in shows each time, but the general idea behind this one is really the concept was about people in our lives that we put a lot more energy into than they put into us, and how that makes people feel. And so usually in a show I'll be like, I hope you don't relate, just because those types of people are probably pretty difficult to have in life. I give and you take away. These gifts pour freely onto you. I care and you run away from caring for you. I try and I try to reach out to you. You won't let me in. You take what is left to me till I'm bones and skin. Selfishness slowly creeps in. You don't follow through on empty promises. You don't follow through on half-truth lies. You don't follow through when it's not about you. The narcissist, the empath, your disguise. The narcissist, the empath, your disguise. You pull me into your messy life. I sink into your elaborate narrative. You tease until I get just enough attention to ride on. I cling to your excuses like grapes to the vine. Selfishness slowly creeps in. I'm already fully drawn in. You don't follow through on empty promises. You don't follow through on half-truth lies. You don't follow through when it's not about you. The narcissist, the empath, your disguise. The narcissist, the empath, your disguise. Ignore the world more each day. It'll help to keep everyone away. Why are you afraid to feel anything remotely real? You don't follow through on empty promises. You don't follow through on half-truth lies. You don't follow through when it's not about you. The narcissist,
you finally removed your disguise.
Okay, so this last song that we're going to play for you is called History. Like many of our songs, it's about relationships going in all sorts of different directions. So it's kind of a fun song to play. It's a bit of a romp, I would say. And it's just about it's not actually about any specific people or relationships, but just the idea of a relationship gone bad and looking back on it and, being wiser for it, I would say. When we play this with our full band, there's a sort of rhythmic intro to it, so I'm going to try to fake that, just muting the strings and see how it goes. But so this is called History.
My beautiful friend, whose heart are you trying to mend? Well, mine is in pieces, 'cause we came to our end, and I'll never see you again. Hey, you beautiful soul, your choices have taken their toll, but I see the good in your spirit so whole, and I'm here for your heart to console. Guess it's just meant to be. You and I were a calamity, spawned for a while, and it still makes me smile. In the end, it's all history. I'm wondering why you never even gave us a try. You turn yourself inside out in a ride, with nothing left to show but a lie. And now there's not a thing left to say. I'm focused on finding my way back to a place where I don't have to pray that you'll be there to love me someday. Guess it's just meant to be. You and I were a calamity, spawned for a while, and it still makes me smile. In the end, it's all history. Guess it's just meant to be. You and I were a calamity, spawned for a while, and it still makes me smile. In the end, it's all history. Hey, my beautiful friend, whose heart are you trying to mend? Well, mine is in pieces, 'cause we came to our end, and I'll never see you again.
If you like what you heard today on the Songs of Inspiration podcast and want to find out more about Wayward Vine and what they're up to, be sure to go over to social media and give them a like and follow. You can find them on Facebook at Wayward Vine and on Instagram at Wayward Vine Band. You'll also find links to their social media in the show notes to this episode as well as the comments section. Thanks for listening to the Songs of Inspiration podcast. Until next time, keep supporting local music, stay safe, and be well. This podcast was produced by True to the Vision Music. For more information on us, check out larswicklund.net.